Have you ever heard someone say something like, people in the 1700s lived longer and healthier than we do today? Maybe your grandfather said it, maybe you saw it in a comment section somewhere, or maybe you've even wondered about it yourself while looking at those old paintings of men with long, white beards who supposedly lived to 90 or 100. Let me ask you something, honestly. If people back then truly lived longer and healthier lives, why did so many historical records show average life expectancy around 35 or 40 years? Something doesn't add up, right? And this is exactly where most people get confused. They hear the number 35 years and immediately imagine that everyone in the 1700s was dropping dead at 35. But that's not what the data actually means. Think about it like a factory production line. Imagine a factory that produces 100 machines every month, but 30 of those machines break down immediately during testing. When the company calculates the average lifespan of their machines, those early failures pull the average way down. Does that mean the machines that survive testing only last a few days? Of course not. Many of them may run perfectly for 20 years. The simple way you can support this mission and let us know our message is reaching people is by subscribing to this channel. Your subscription fuels our work, helps us reach more people, and allows us to continue creating valuable educational content for you and others around the world. Thank you for being part of this journey. Human life in the 1700s worked in a similar way. The number called life expectancy at birth included infant mortality, childhood diseases, infections, and injuries. Back then, if a child got something as simple as a bacterial infection, there were no antibiotics, no emergency rooms, no modern vaccines. Many children didn't survive those early years, and that dragged the average lifespan down dramatically. But here's the fascinating part that most people never hear. Once someone in the 1700s survived childhood and reached adulthood, many of them lived into their 60s or 70s. Some even lived into their 80s and 90s. Now, think about that for a moment. Does that surprise you? Because if it does, you're not alone. The myth that everyone died young in the past is just as misleading as the myth that everyone lived longer back then. The truth is sitting right in the middle. Let me give you another example so it becomes clearer. Imagine a long highway filled with cars. Some cars unfortunately break down right at the beginning of the road. Maybe the engine fails, maybe the tires burst, but the cars that make it past the first few miles often continue driving smoothly for hundreds of miles. When someone calculates the average distance traveled, including those early breakdowns, the number looks small. But that doesn't represent the cars that successfully stayed on the road. Human history works exactly like that road. But here's where the conversation becomes even more interesting, and I want you to really think about this part. If modern medicine is so advanced today, antibiotics, hospitals, surgeries, MRI scans, why are we seeing more chronic diseases than ever before? Why are so many people today struggling with obesity, diabetes, heart disease, fatigue, and inflammation? Let me ask you a direct question. Look around at people in their 40s and 50s today. Do they look healthier than people from old farming communities? Or do they look more tired, heavier, and constantly dependent on medication? I'm not saying modern medicine isn't amazing. It absolutely saves lives every single day. But something has clearly changed in the way we live. And when historians and medical researchers look closely at life in the 1700s, they notice a few patterns that might surprise you. The first thing is something many people today would actually complain about if they experienced it. Irregular meals. People in the 1700s didn't eat 3 structured meals with snacks in between the way we do today. Food availability was different. Breakfast might be late, lunch might be small, dinner could be the main meal of the day, and sometimes there simply wasn't constant access to food the way we have today. Think about your body like a factory again. Inside that factory are millions of tiny workers. These workers represent your cells, your hormones, your digestive system, and your immune system. If the factory machines run non-stop all day without any pause, what happens eventually? The machines start overheating. Parts begin wearing out. Maintenance becomes impossible because the assembly line never stops. Now imagine the opposite scenario. The factory runs for a few hours, then pauses. Workers clean the machines, repair broken parts, and reset the system. When production starts again, everything runs more smoothly. Your body works in a similar way. When you constantly eat from morning until midnight, breakfast, snacks, lunch, more snacks, sugary drinks, late dinners, your metabolic factory never gets that repair time. But when people naturally went longer periods without food in the past, their bodies entered periods of metabolic repair. Today, scientists call this intermittent fasting, but centuries ago it wasn't a diet trend, it was simply life. Now I'm curious about you. Think about your own daily routine for a moment. How many hours pass between your last meal at night and your first meal the next day? 8 hours? 10 hours? Or are you someone who snacks late at night and eats again early in the morning? Just asking that question alone makes many people pause and rethink their habits. But food wasn't the only difference. The second major difference was what people actually ate. In the 1700s, food came directly from farms, gardens, rivers, and forests. Vegetables were picked fresh. Meat came from animals raised naturally. Bread was made with simple ingredients. There were no industrial, ultra-processed foods filled with artificial additives, excess sugar, and refined oils. Imagine another simple comparison. Think about your bloodstream as a highway system. Every second, nutrients, oxygen, and hormones travel along that highway to reach different organs. Now imagine what happens when that highway becomes clogged with traffic, sugar spikes, excess processed fats, chronic inflammation. The traffic slows down, deliveries become inefficient, accidents begin happening. But when the highway is clear, traffic flows smoothly. Deliveries arrive on time, the entire system operates efficiently. Many modern diets unfortunately overload that highway. Now, before someone jumps into the comments and says, "But people in the 1700s worked harder physically," let's talk about that too, because it's the third major difference. Movement was built into daily life, not gym workouts, not structured exercise programs, just life itself. Farmers walked miles across fields. Craftsmen used their hands all day. Women carried water, prepared food from scratch, and moved constantly throughout the day. Imagine 2 engines. One engine sits idle for 10 hours a day and then suddenly tries to run at high speed for 30 minutes. The other engine runs slowly but consistently all day long. Which one do you think stays healthier over time? The human body was designed for steady movement, not long periods of sitting. So let me ask you something again and answer honestly in your mind. How many hours did you sit today before watching this video? 2 hours? 4 hours? 8 hours? This is where modern life begins to clash with ancient biology. But here's something even more surprising. The fourth difference researchers often talk about is inflammation. Chronic inflammation is one of the biggest drivers of modern diseases, from heart disease to diabetes to joint pain. Processed foods, chronic stress, poor sleep, and lack of movement all contribute to this silent fire inside the body. Think of inflammation like rust inside a machine. At first it's barely noticeable, but over time the rust spreads, parts begin sticking, the machine becomes slower and less efficient. Now imagine removing the conditions that create that rust in the first place. Simpler food, more movement, less constant eating. That doesn't mean life in the 1700s was perfect. In fact, it was extremely hard in many ways. People faced dangerous infections, injuries, and harsh living conditions. But when it came to metabolic health, the health of the body's internal systems, there were some accidental advantages. And this brings us to a very important point, something I want you to think deeply about. Modern medicine has become incredibly powerful at treating disease. But lifestyle still determines whether disease develops in the first place. Imagine a city that builds the best fire department in the world. Fire trucks are fast. Firefighters are highly trained. Emergency systems are perfect. But at the same time, the city allows faulty electrical wiring in every building. What happens? Fires keep happening. Medicine is the firefighter, lifestyle is the wiring, and this is where history becomes useful, not because the past was better, but because it reminds us how the human body originally functioned. So what can we actually learn from people who lived 200 or 300 years ago? One simple habit stands out more than most others. Natural periods without food, not starvation, just giving the body time between meals. Think about finishing dinner earlier in the evening and allowing 12 to 14 hours before breakfast the next day. During that quiet metabolic window, your body begins clearing damaged cells, balancing hormones, and resetting energy systems. Researchers today are studying this deeply, and the results are fascinating. But here's the real question I want to leave with you tonight. If someone from the 1700s suddenly appeared in 2026 and looked at the way we eat, move, and live, what do you think would shock them the most? Would it be the processed food aisles in supermarkets? The fact that many people sit most of the day? Or the idea that food is available every single hour of the day and night? I'd genuinely like to know your thoughts on that. Imagine you could ask someone from that era one health question, just one. What would you ask them? Write it in the comments because conversations like this often reveal something fascinating. Sometimes the future of health isn't about discovering something brand new. Sometimes it's about rediscovering simple habits that human biology has understood for centuries.